Consider the shirt change you got me getting coffee. Mostly because I may or may not have put the shirt on and then too lazy to take it off and put it back on again. Yeah, that's definitely why. Part of my job as a commentary YouTuber is to really take you guys on a journey through the internet and piece together multiple sources just so you don't have to. Some people might argue that's what makes people lazy, and I definitely would argue the same thing, but I'm not going to complain because that's how I get views on my video, so it just really depends how you look at it. So today, I'm going to cover another sports video. I did the Super Bowl last upload. This upload is going to be sports again. So if you're happy to search here and you find this video, welcome. But I don't always upload sports content, so don't subscribe expecting that. But subscribe expecting content similar to the video you're about to watch. But anyway, today's video starts with a normal field goal. Editor, roll the clip.
Over the head and incomplete. So Vinatieri, chippy from about 23. McAffee on the hold, and the Colts put 3 on the board.
There are two things that are kind of out of the ordinary, but not necessarily super blatant. So I don't expect you to have seen them upon first watch, or if you don't already know this story. The first one is Pat McAfee looking utterly disappointed before the snap. He literally looks like someone just killed his kitten. And the other one is Troy Polamalu lining up in the C gap. That's another thing that's kind of out of the ordinary because that is not where he usually lines up for a field goal block. Now, if you watched that clip when it originally aired in 2014, you might have missed what actually happened. And I don't think it really was broadcasted until 2017 when Pat McAfee started his podcast/YouTube channel. And he really details the whole story of what actually went down. If you don't watch that podcast or YouTube channel and you actually do like football, I really recommend following him. But let's just visit what he said.
Let me tell you a little story about these statistics. We had a fake for the Pittsburgh Steelers that was a 100%er. If we ever end up in this situation, inside the 7-yard line on the left hash, that the C gap will be wide open and we will just part the C to the left, it'll be a touchdown. Anyways, so we're there in that stadium. A lot of McAfees in Pittsburgh. We get into that situation. So I get out there. All of a sudden, I go through my cadence. I call it. I get down. And Troy Polamalu's fucking ass, he lined up exactly where he had lined in film 100% of the time. He just bounced his little ass right over to the C gap.
So the C gap was supposed to be open. And in this instance, it wasn't. Any normal person would start to conjecture, why was he there? Like, why was he lined up in the C gap if he's not normally there? So Pat McAfee brings Ike Taylor onto his podcast, and Ike Taylor says this about Troy Polamalu.
Troy, God told you to be right here because he knew this was going to happen. Why he don't talk to us like that? You feel me? Yeah. You feel me, P-Mac? Yeah. So Troy just had that instinct, and his nickname for some part was Baby Jesus. We used to call him Baby Jesus because, you know, Troy just knew things was going to happen before it even happened. Troy was that instinctive. Whatever he saw on tape, whatever he saw on the field, he didn't hesitate on seeing it, believing it, and making that play. But it's just a lot of instinctive. Yeah. TP was just different, man. Like
if you literally have God whispering to you on the play before the snap, it becomes a lot easier to play football. You're breaking a rule. I don't know what rule you're breaking, but you're breaking one of them. And it's really interesting because we've never really heard this story from Troy's perspective. And it wasn't until literally yesterday, actually depending on when I upload this video, could be 2 days ago, could be 3 days ago. A YouTuber by the name of RBT had the opportunity to interview Troy Polamalu for Head and Shoulders, clearly watch his content on YouTube, and had an understanding of this 2017 question that I personally wanted answered, but no other person that has access to TP has ever thought to ask this question on camera. So we finally got an answer, and everything can come to a full close.
Our special teams coach had approached me and said, man, we always run a block to the field. This is what we've been doing all year long. This is what we've been doing during, we need to find a time to throw it into the boundary. And we had talked about this before the Indianapolis Colts game. The Spidey sense.
Okay, Spidey sense.
I had to get my inner Peter Parker. To be very honest, I could tell by Pat's energy and the way that he came off the sideline. He seemed way too excited just for a field goal.
Okay.
So he kind of showed his hand. He's got a lot of tells in this game.
Or so I thought. He almost helped us close it. He attributes a lot of the lining up on the C gap to a Spidey sense that he has. And as you said, Ike Taylor says it's communicating with God or a gut feeling. And what's really going on here? There's too many answers. And I decided to do some more digging. And by do some more digging / research, I mean refer to 2 books that I've already read like it was a 4th grade book report. If you didn't use books you've already read throughout school, there you go, there's a tip. So I'm going to pull most of the information that I use to try and figure out what's actually going on here from 2 books. And one of them is Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman. The other one is Blink by Malcolm Gladwell. I do want to clarify I'm in no way an expert, and my opinion should be taken with a grain of salt, but I read these 2 books, so I'm pretty much an expert. So let's start with Daniel Kahneman's book. Daniel Kahneman pretty much focuses his whole book on breaking down your brain having 2 main realms of thought. He pretty much classifies them as System 1 and System 2. And I'm going to go in reverse and start with System 2 thought. System 2 thought is really only used about 20 to 30% of the time when making a choice. This is like buying a house. Things that require a lot of brain power that shouldn't be done quickly, it uses System 2. And this realm of thought really has room for a whole nother video, but that's not what I want to talk about now because System 1 is where I think this plays into play. System 1 are about where, I mean, if you do math, subtract the 20 to 30% that I originally said, around 80 to 70% of your thoughts and decisions come from System 1 thought. These are habits, these are program responses. This is where a lot of people do dumb things because it's just quick as opposed to actually sitting and thinking through. This is where Daniel Kahneman's book goes through and pretty much makes you feel like you're an idiot. He sits there and he breaks down a lot of the fallacies and a lot of the biases that we have on a day-to-day basis that really we think that we do a good job of overcoming, but he just shows you how you don't. You literally don't. A basic example of this is this thing called anchoring. He asks 2 sets of questions. The first set he goes, do you think the tallest tree is over or under 180 feet? And then give a guess. And then the second set he says, do you think the world's tallest tree is over or under 1,200 feet? And then the second one he has to take a guess. In the first group, their answer was anchored to the 180. So their answers were around the 200 range. While the second group was anchored to 1,200, so their answers were around the 800 feet range. I bring this up mostly because although this is your brain working on a bias, it's very oftentimes the bias can play into your favor. And other times, the bias makes you Donald Trump. Anyway, Blank by Malcolm Gladwell really focuses on the times that the biases play into your favor as opposed to working against you. And in the book, he talks about finding ways to lean on your brain making those good decisions. He talks about a lot of things, but there's one thing that I want to focus on, and it's thin slice. Thin slice is our brain's ability to quickly gather small bits of information and to use standout experiences to make informed decisions. Now, make is in air quotes because most of the time you don't even feel involved in the process. And that's because most of the thought process really happens in your subconscious. Gladwell pretty much says that your subconscious mind has the ability to link things together using this concept called thin slice before your conscious mind even recognizes what's going on. So it's not really making because the choice feels like it was already made for you. And another way to say this is pretty much your System 1 mind is a lot quicker than your System 2 mind. So all of that to pretty much argue, it's not extremely unlikely that after watching your own film multiple times, recognizing the flaws in your own defense, recognizing that Pat McAfee was coming off of the bench a lot more excited than he should have been for a field goal, recognizing that you know exactly where that flaw is, your subconscious mind could have definitely reached a conclusion, hey, I should line up on the C gap because this is probably a fake, before your conscious mind could even recognize it. In a lot of sports practice, the reason that you do things in repetition is because you want these types of decisions to be made in your System 1 thought. It helps with your reaction time. So the reason that they say practice makes perfect is really just you practice System 2 to make it System 1. I hope that makes sense. Again, this is just my opinion or what I think is going on. Based off of 2 books that I read. I'm not by any means a subject matter expert. But if you enjoyed the 2 books that I talked about, or any of the concepts that I talked about, be sure to check out those 2 books. If you like the brief interview segments that I did pull out, be sure to check out Pat McAfee and be sure to check out RBT. And if you like the way that I commentated on this situation and you like the input that I added, Be sure to check out another video and subscribe if you want to see more content like this. Press the bell button if you don't want to miss it. And I do have some videos coming down the pipeline, a few next week, and of course, I'm gonna keep bumping these out. So share this with someone that you think needs to learn how to think better. And that's all I really got for you, so Will walks out. Peace.